Hello people! After witnessing and experiencing one of the most disappointing disasters in the gaming industry ever in this point in time, I feel like I need to do something and make a stand. Something that I would have never believed being possible to happen has happened. CDPR pulled up Bethesda on us. Actually, they speedrun the whole process and arrived at the finish line before Bethesda ever could. In this regard, it's a sensational achievement. I don't know if I should applaud with enthusiasm or pull my shame on you flag out of the closet and bravely wiggle it around in protest. And I'm not talking about CDPR creating a substandard game. No, I'm talking about their attitude, business practices, their lies, and the way they try to bullshit us with a half-baked sorry video that felt more like excuses than them taking accountability. The whole situation created a war online between two factions, a war that showcased which side had a better keyboard fingering technique, showing their indisputable superiority in the face of lacking reason. First are the defenders of the game that swear this game is a masterpiece, perfect, best game that ever existed. And to them I say, grow up, educate yourself, learn what the term critical thinking means. And I finish with bullshit. You really are trying to argue with me that this game is actually good? You can enjoy whatever you want to enjoy. I won't stop you, I won't judge you, but don't try to defend the undefendable and stop bullshitting yourself first and make a stand for these crappy practices that I am so tired of in this industry. The other faction is simply haters. I don't want to give them more coverage than needed. I disagree completely with blind rage and hate and unreasonable people. The game is not a masterpiece and a disappointment, but this kind of destructive behavior doesn't help anyone, and this type of attitude cannot be taken seriously. To be honest, they are both the same coin, just standing on different sides. The aftermath of this war left me with my mind clogged with the feeling of, oh crap, here we go again. History repeats itself. If only we could find common ground and propel these practices in a positive, progressive pathway that will lead to great games, satisfied gamers, and companies with money. I just want to add a few things before going to the main point of discussion. If you are a defender of this game and an apologist for CDPR, let me tell you something. You are gatekeeping progress. You are standing against good practices. You are asking to be preyed upon by immoral, predatory behaviors, and you'll never get a finished game. You are more damaging than the ones that hate the game. Did you ever wonder what would happen if you guys would actually be a majority? If the game would be accepted in its current form as good? CDPR would stop giving updates, would even stop fixing bugs. Us, customers, gamers, have a duty to not let shitty companies to make a fool of us and steal our money by buying faulty, unfinished products. In a way, people that defend this game as a masterpiece are gatekeeping progress to be made in a positive way. Think about it. If you accept it as the way it is in its current form, you are only hurting yourself.
Serves them right.
Some people never learn.
Anywho, let's get on to what I want to discuss today. The director from Ori, which by the way it's an incredible game, made a post about the practices in this industry. So, without further ado, let's digest the piece.
This is something that's been bothering me for a while, and I get kinda riled up about it every time I see it unfold. And every time it keeps happening, people keep falling for it. It all started with Molyneux. He was the master of, instead of telling you what my product is, let me just go wild with what I think it could be and get you all excited. And that was fine until you actually put your money down, and then the game was nothing like what Peter was hyping it up to be. He pulled this shit for a good decade or more, with journalists and gamers loving listening to Uncle Peter and the amazing things he's doing for the industry. It took him to release some pretty damn shoddy games for press and gamers to finally not listen to the lies anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is simply fact. That's what he did and that's what we got. The problem is not actually Peter, but the people that buy into this bullshit. And after they get burned, they don't care about it. Actually, they defended it, because they can't stand it to be in the wrong. Even when they are hit in the face with the truth of the situation, they will ignore it and yell harder that what they played is perfect. This is caused by cognitive dissonance, and people simply will inevitably resolve dissonance by blindly believing whatever they wanted to believe, ignoring facts and reality.
Then came Sean Murray, who apparently learned straight from Peter Molyneux handbook. This guy apparently just loved the spotlight, even days before No Man's Sky released. He hyped up the multiplayer that didn't even exist and was all too happy to let people think that No Man's Sky was Minecraft in space, where you could literally do everything. You being able to do everything is generally a common theme behind the game snake oil salesman, cause hey, that sort of attracts everybody. Obviously, there was massive backlash when No Man's Sky finally released, and the product being nothing like what Murray hyped it up to be. But what happened then? They released a bunch of updates, so let's forget about the initial lies and deceptions and hey, let's actually shower him with awards again, cause he finally kinda sorta delivered on what he said the game would be years earlier. Thanks Geoffrey Kegley, rewarding that kind of behavior will surely help the industry grow stronger.
Yes, indeed he did, and that's what happened. Now, we shouldn't allow stuff like this to happen, but from my point of view, we already are at the point where we can't stop it. So I much more prefer for redemption stories than for stories like Bethesda, where they go even further in the rabbit hole. And there is a point and argument to be made that the circumstances are different and context matters. Let's not simply ignore it and turn this problem into something else. But yes, the bottom line is that he lied. He delivered something entirely different. In the end, it turned into a happy ending. But that does not excuse the lies, and I think we should never stand for this kind of immoral practices. It influences people in negative ways and normalizes harmful and predatory practices.
And then came Cyberpunk, made by the guys that made Witcher 3. So this has to be good. Here's our Cyberpunk universe, and trust us, you can do everything. Here the entire CDPR PR department took all the cues from what worked for Molyneux and Murray and just went completely apeshit with it. Gamers were to believe that this is sci-fi GTA in first person. What's not to love? Every video released by CDPR was carefully crafted to create a picture in players' minds that was just insanely compelling. They stopped just short of outright saying that this thing would cure cancer. This strategy resulted in a sensational 8 million pre-orders. What happened then was this. The product was a fraction of what the developers hyped it up to be, and on top of that, it barely even ran on consoles that it was supposed to run surprisingly well on.
This is such a sour and uncomfortable subject for me, but yet I have to face reality, and I can't simply ignore it. I can only agree with what you said, but I don't think this was their plan. From what I could gather from past tweets from former employees a few years back, this was supposed to be a very different type of game, but somewhere in development, the higher-ups decided this to be a GTA clone with a different coat on top of it. Guess all that talk about letting grid to others was just bullshit. Well, it's kinda obvious now, but before the release, this was kinda hard to even imagine. Especially after all the pro-consumer stunts they pulled over the years with Good Old Games and The Witcher. What is really hard to swallow is the defense force this game actually formed around itself. It is mind-boggling that people can say with a clean conscience that this game is a masterpiece, but you can make a pretty accurate depiction of the people that are still playing the game. The subreddit is full of selfies with V, feels more like a Twitter or Instagram, not a place for gamers to gather and talk about builds, quests, unique stuff, etc.
I'd argue that all three of those are clear examples of you folks all being made fools of, and even journalists in this industry happily played along, each and every single time.
Pretty much, yeah, we let them make a fool of us, especially me. I really believed in CDPR that they would pull another great game, but after seeing how bare bones and shallow the game is, and I'm not talking here about bugs, but the mechanics of the game, I can say with certainty that they lost a fan, they lost a consumer, and they simply lost my trust. And this damage caused to me will not be extended to only CDPR either. I will even be guarded better against all companies and products. I will never pre-order a game, and I will never believe in promises made by others, including games you work on. So yeah, the damage caused by this extends beyond CDPR, but as I said in another video, if they ever change their ways of conduct, I would simply walk away from them, and that's what I will do. I want to make an accolade here that this problem stems from a more serious one. If you ever studied history, you'd know that there are various periods of time where humans didn't care at all about other humans, a phenomenon that is called dehumanizing. We made great strides against it in modern times, but since the inception of the internet, we are slowly descending in a trend of losing empathy, compassion, and giving a shit about others, or even about ourselves. And another problem that adds to this is a lack of time. Many of us simply don't have the time or energy to inform about these practices. We are too busy to put a meal on the table for our family. Actually, some of us might be too busy to actually live our life.
And let me also say, from the perspective of a developer, all of this just sucks. Back in 2014, I remember some journalists from some big publication telling us that Ori almost got the cover article of some magazine I read frequently, but ultimately they had to pick No Man's Sky cause it was the bigger game. I kinda agreed back then, thinking to myself, okay, I get it, they obviously have to go for the clicks. Sucks, but that's how the game is played. But then, I really felt bamboozled once No Man's Sky came out and it became clear that all this hype was really just built on lies, and the honest guy who showed his actual product really got kicked in the balls, because the lying guy was able to make up some tall tales that held absolutely no substance.
What you said here can come off as a more subjective view and giving it more importance because you are part of the project and you are emotionally invested in this. But I get you, I understand where you are coming from. Personally, I like Ori more than I will ever like No Man's Sky, but this is just a preference. It would be cool to live in a world where both titles would appear on the cover and the bias would stop. But humans are humans and our nature is being exploited by those in the know-how. I'm certain you are guilty yourself of clicking on things you would 100% not be interested just because you got clickbaited. Let's say that Outer Worlds would have been scheduled to be released at the same time as Cyberpunk. What article you would click first?
I know this whole thread might come off as me sounding bitter, and I'm sure there will be some people that see this as me shitting on other developers. No, I'm not. I'm shitting on liars and people that are okay with openly deceiving others. I'd argue that we should all agree that this shit is not okay. If I go and buy a car and the car salesman sells me a car that supposedly has 300 horsepower, but on the drive home after the purchase I noticed that he switched out the motor when I wasn't looking, I'd be rightfully pissed off, cause I was deceived.
Yep, pretty much. We should be annoyed. We shouldn't let this happen. We need to stop this and stand against it. I agree.
And yet, gamers and journalists don't really seem to mind all that much. Yeah, the backlash is coming, but usually you see a ton of people then arguing that they like the game that came out of it anyway. That is not the point. It doesn't matter if the snake oil actually tastes fine. Don't sell me on features that don't exist. Don't paint a picture that you'll not be able to deliver. Just don't lie to me. You're for gamers, you're go for journalists that should know better, so shame on you. And you're go over other developers.
I think that you don't understand really well the crowd of people that these games gather around them. While there are gamers in there that understand what makes a game a good game, the majority of customers that they have, it's more casual in nature. If you look now at the subreddit posts that are trading on Cyberpunk, most of them are selfies of V or memes. They are enjoying Cyberpunk because they can drive around, see cool shit and take pictures to gain votes on Reddit. The way they play the game, they don't experience 70% of it. Of course they don't care, after all, in many ways ignorance is bliss. Compare this to Reddits like Pillars or Gothic, where people talk about builds, items, way to challenge themselves, stats, quests, debate themes, and of course meme, but that's a given.
There, I said my piece. Felt like a chip I needed to get off my shoulder, and I think this is a wrong that we should set right so that this won't happen anymore.
I want to congratulate you for it. We live in a world that the hive mind of the internet will burn you alive for stating truths and for making a try to reason and change things for the better. So keep going, don't stop. We need more voices that are already in the industry to speak up. The voice that yells the hardest may be the loudest, but the voice that hides behind a sharp mind, a decent attitude, a wish for change and progress into a better outcome cuts the hardest in our minds and hearts. After all, the outrage came because people want honesty and not to be deceived. I want to finish this video by saying that I don't wish for CDPR to go under. I don't wish for them to do badly, quite the contrary. I don't blame the devs for what happened. I actually wish for them to do well, recover from this, and never ever pull something like this again. What I want from them is transparency, honesty, good business practices, good games that have interactivity, reactivity, compelling characters, great gameplay that makes the game fun and a cool world to explore. We already got that in the past with Witcher 3. I expect the same in the future, but until then, CD Projekt Red, you lost a fan, and not any kind of fan, a fan that cared, and this trust you lost won't be easy to recover. Anyway, this is it for my little ramble. Hope you guys enjoyed. I am certain some of you will hate it. Hey, but that is to be expected. I wish you all the best regardless, and see you next time. I will leave you in the company of this quote that I think it fits like a glove for the subject at hand.
It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently.